Hey, welcome. Today we are opening up the psychoanalytic toolkit and diving right into the hidden machinery of our own minds. We're going to unpack why we feel the things we feel and why we do the things we do. Let's get into it.
So think about this for a second. We all get anxious, right? But what if that feeling, that knot in your stomach, what if it isn't actually the problem? What if it's more like a clue, a flashing light on your mental dashboard, pointing to something much, much deeper? Let's follow that trail. Okay, so to figure out where that anxiety is coming from, we've got to meet the cast of characters running the show inside your head. You see, psychoanalytic theory says that our mind is pretty much in a constant state of internal conflict. So who are these players? Well, first up, you've got the id. This is your inner wild child. It's all instinct, all desire. It just screams, I want it, and I want it now. Then, on the other side, you've got the superego. Think of this as your inner moral police, always telling you what you should and shouldn't do. And, caught right in the middle of this tug of war is the ego, trying to act as the bodyguard, the mediator, desperately trying to find a realistic compromise between these two. Now, you can imagine when that battle between your inner wild child and the moral police gets a little too heated, the ego needs some tools, some tricks to manage all that stress. And these are what we call defense mechanisms. I love this analogy. Think of your defenses as Photoshop filters for your mind. They don't actually change reality, of course, but they tweak how you see it. They make it a little less harsh, a little less scary, and a whole lot easier to look at. And here's the kicker. This all happens unconsciously. You're not even aware of it. A defense mechanism is your brain's automatic system for locking away difficult thoughts and fears, basically shielding you from information it decides you just can't handle right now. So let's look at a few common filters. I bet you'll recognize some of these. You've got denial, where you just flat out refuse to accept something unpleasant happened. Then there's projection, which is when you take your own feelings and pin them on someone else. And, oh yeah, displacement. That's when you have a terrible day at work and you come home and yell at your dog. Poor dog. And of course, rationalization, which is just inventing a really smart-sounding reason for doing something that was, maybe not so smart. But what happens when those Photoshop filters, when those defenses start to glitch out? What happens when they start to fail? Well, that's when the alarm bells go off. And that alarm bell, that's anxiety. So from this psychoanalytic point of view, anxiety isn't the fire, it's the fire alarm. It is that blaring, impossible-to-ignore warning that your defenses are cracking under pressure, and some of those repressed feelings are about to break through into your conscious mind. So when you get that overwhelming feeling that something is just wrong, psychoanalysis says that's a signal of the return of the repressed. A painful memory, a deep fear, an old guilt. It's bubbling up from your unconscious, and your mind is scrambling to keep the lid on. That anxiety you feel is the sound of that struggle. And hey, not all fire alarms are triggered by the same thing. You've got reality anxiety. That's a fear of actual danger, like, seeing a bear on your hike. Totally legit. Then there's neurotic anxiety. That's the fear your impulsive id is going to break free and get you fired, like that urge to just scream at your boss. And finally, there's moral anxiety. That's that pang of guilt your superego hits you with when you do something you think is wrong, even if it's just stealing a pen from work. All right, so if anxiety is the fire alarm, what's the actual fire? Where's the smoke coming from? To find that, we have to dig a little deeper for what psychoanalysts call our core issues. Core issues are the really deep, often hidden psychological wounds that secretly drive our behavior. They are the recurring themes in our lives, those patterns you see again and again in your relationships or your career, often without ever consciously understanding why they keep happening. Basically, a core issue is the source code for our self-destructive habits. It's rooted in old, repressed stuff from our past. It's the real reason that fire alarm of anxiety started ringing in the first place. And a lot of these issues circle around some really common human fears. Things like a deep fear of abandonment, that belief that everyone you love will eventually leave. Or a fear of intimacy, where getting too close to someone just feels dangerous. Or low self-esteem, that nagging feeling that you're just not worthy of love or success. These are the kinds of deep wounds our defenses work so hard to protect us from feeling. Okay, so we've got the bodyguard ego, the Photoshop defenses, the fire alarm of anxiety, and the fire of our core issues. So now let's connect all the dots and see how this whole system works together in a real-life example. So, picture this.
You have a dream that the person you've got a crush on just completely ignores you at a party. It's only a dream, right? But you wake up and there's this heavy knot of anxiety in your chest. So what does our psychoanalytic toolkit tell us is really going on here?
Okay, let's break it down step by step. First, your defense mechanism jumps into action. You immediately tell yourself, "Peek, whatever. I didn't even like them that much anyway." That's a nice little cocktail of denial and rationalization. Second, that anxiety you're feeling, that's the fire alarm. It's signaling that your defenses are working overtime to cover up the raw, painful feeling of rejection. And finally, if we follow that alarm back to the source of the fire, we find the core issue. The dream and the anxiety, they're not really about this one person. They're tapping into a much deeper, recurring fear of abandonment.
It's really true. You can think of your mind as this ridiculously busy office. Your poor ego is the manager, just frantically trying to file paperwork, stuck between a needy, demanding id and a super strict superego, all while that anxiety fire alarm is threatening to go off every 5 minutes.
So in the end, yeah, our defenses are there to protect us. They help us get through the day. But here's the real question to leave you with. While they are keeping you safe from pain, what might they also be keeping you from? What kind of growth, what connections, what part of your own life story is waiting just on the other side of that wall?